Karimi Sunday. I represent Kogi West. My Excellency Governor Nasir El-Rufai, your performance in any office you find yourself in this country has been outstanding. In BPE, your record is there. In FCT as a minister, your record is there. And as two-time governor of Kaduna State, you did well. But I have a very strong petition against you that borders on security, unity, and cohesiveness of Nigerian nation. And I think that petition has to be considered along in this screening exercise.
Senator Sani Musa.
The distinguished senators for the very warm remarks made on my person and on my public service record. I want to convey my gratitude to the Senate for this recognition. My brother, the distinguished senator from Zamfara State and our former chairman of the Governors Forum, asked 3 questions, all centered around the electricity supply industry. I will take them together because they are all connected. My brother asked about how do we ramp up generation and distribution? What do we do about the privatized discourse and the issues of subsidies and illiquidity around them, and the various guarantees that have so far costed the government more than 1.6 trillion after privatization? Your Excellencies, the electricity supply situation in Nigeria has defied every government for 60 years. It has defied every president. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is committed to ensuring that Nigeria has stable and reliable electricity supply. Because without electricity, industrialization is a pipe dream. Without electricity, even agriculture today is not a viable proposition. So he's committed to that, and he has asked me to work with him to address these problems. And I will do my best to do so. Your Excellencies, right now Nigeria has about 13,000 megawatts of installed generation capacity, but we hardly do more than 4,000 or 5,000 megawatts. So to improve generation, the first order of business is to look at what is constraining the full production of electricity from these 13,000 megawatts. Why do we have 13,000 installed and only 4,000 or 5,000 being produced? Many of them, many of the generation stations cannot produce because of poor supply of gas. 80% of our generation is from gas, and the balance is hydro. The gas-fired stations often don't have supply of gas. There are power stations that have been completed 2 or 3 years ago, and they have produced nothing because there is no gas supply. So that's another thing that must be addressed. We must ensure that gas and power are together under one roof for this issue of gas supply, which has persisted for over 20 years, to be resolved. But Your Excellency, even if we are able to generate 13,000 megawatts today, our transmission infrastructure can only do 5,000, maybe 6,000 at best. So the second major constraint to electricity supply in Nigeria is the transmission infrastructure. We need to close the loop in our transmission system so that the 13 system collapses we had in 2022 are not repeated again in our history. And this can be done. There is money to expand the transmission infrastructure. We just need to organize ourselves, remove politics from transmission procurement, and focus on improving our transmission infrastructure. The third problem is distribution. In 2013, we privatized our distribution companies, 11 of them, 60% to the private sector, 40% to be held by government. The idea is that the 40% is supposed to be listed on the stock exchange so that every Nigerian will be a shareholder in these companies. But that has not happened. 10 years after privatization, the government is still, in one way or the other, subsidizing electricity. As I said, the last time we checked, it was about 1.6 trillion in a privatized environment. This is unsustainable and unacceptable. But what do we do with the distribution companies? They have been privatized. About 5 or 6 of them are under receivership because those that bought the companies borrowed from banks and have not been paying the banks. So the banks have taken over 5 or 6 of them. And the last time we did a stress test on the distribution companies, only about 3 of them out of 11 are doing well. So there is a lot of work to be done regarding distribution because distribution is the last end of the electricity supply chain. If it does not work, if they don't collect money, if they don't have enough metering, then they would not be able to pay for power supplied by the generation companies. And when they are unable to pay, the gap is what the government now pays. Otherwise, they will invoke the partial risk guarantee posted by the federal government of Nigeria. So this is a major problem and has to be addressed. But in the short term, the liquidity situation in the electricity supply industry has to be looked at. Tariffs must be cost reflective, and even the ownership of these distribution companies may have to change because right now the banks own about 6 of them. They control 60% of the shares, and banks are not good at running companies. They are good at taking out whatever they need to recover their loan. So we intend, if given the opportunity, to sit and work out a system in which perhaps we'll be able to attract fresh capital, fresh new investors with technical and financial capacity into the distribution chain so that it can be expanded. The opportunity to do so exists because 6, as I said, out of the 11 are in receivership. 3 are doing okay. The others are 50-50, but a holistic approach is needed. And Your Excellencies, this is a problem that requires the support of everyone. It's not just Mr. President who will lead from the front, but also the National Assembly. Certain amendments to the Electricity Act 2023 may be needed. Certain amendments to the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 may be needed to bring this sector to align so that we provide Nigerians stable and reliable electricity. The President's vision is that within 7 years, we will not have power outages in this country. The President is saddened by the fact that countries like Benin Republic, Cameroon, Niger, our neighbors that are smaller countries, have reliable electricity. You don't see power cuts in these countries yet. With all our resources and our capabilities and the quality of people we have as a nation, we are unable to provide electricity to our households and our businesses. And he's committed to working with everyone to ensure that this happens. And I urge the National Assembly to be a partner to make this happen. There are many parts of Nigeria that are not covered by the grid. The new Electricity Act provides the states with greater involvement now in the electricity supply industry. And what is happening in the world provides an opportunity for Nigeria to attract a lot of resources into the renewable energy sector, utilizing solar, wind, and even nuclear. And we are not ruling out using our coal reserves to establish power stations that will constitute the base load for the stability of the power system. So all options will be looked at. Metering is a big issue. A lot of progress has been made by some of the distribution companies in the last 3 or 4 years with the support of the central bank and the World Bank. And every house should be metered. Every household, every business should be metered. Estimated billing is not acceptable. But in addition, Your Excellency, distinguished senators, Nigeria must take a hard stance against those that steal electricity, those that get electricity by diverting cables and not paying. We must take a hardline stance if this sector is to work. A lot of advocacy is necessary because, as the distinguished senator correctly pointed out, people believe that water and electricity should be free. They are social services. They are not. They cost money to produce. The least you can do is to pay back for the cost of production. And if you're handing it to the private sector needs a return on its investment over and above the cost of production. This was the intention of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2005, which this National Assembly enacted, and it is continued in the Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2023. I hope, Your Excellency, I have responded to all your questions. Distinguished Senate President, I would like to say 1 or 2 words before I leave. The distinguished senator from Kogi talked about a petition against me.
Distinguished colleagues, perhaps I should inform you that I've received petitions from many other people in respect of other nominees. But this is not where we are to deal with petitions. Our job here is to screen. And then, of course, we can refer petitions to where petitions will be dealt with. These are the nominees of Mr. President. If it is something that is a formal petition before the Senate, we will look at it formally. But there are certain petitions we have to refer back to either the presidency or security agencies to look at. And that has nothing to do with us. So I think by the time we are going into the issue of confirmation and approval, we will be so advised. So I will want to plead with my brother to take a bow. Take a bow. So don't bother about. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.